think, nope. There we go.
Are we on now?
Thank
All right, so on this end here in northern Indiana, my name is Brigida. Carol, will you turn around and wave?
Morning.
Carol is my partner in crime. DJ, can you switch to the other Brigida?
Brigida, turn that mic off on that other one. It's going to wherever the live mic is.
All right, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, bear with me here. I had everything all connected. All right, so Carol's going to be doing some demonstration here for us about our fire building. We are actually at a friend of mine's house. He's utilizing her fire ring. Have our station set up around the fire. So you'll see us moving from time to time doing different things. Are you ready, Carol? In a minute. And we'll do our best to be using our camp voices for everybody.
Oh, did we lose him?
I think so at the moment.
Okay. Well, how about this? We'll jump back in a minute. Carol's going to show us a little bit about how to build a campfire, some different ways to be able to do that. Hopefully you've had a chance to go and do that today if you're going to maybe cook along with us. They're going to talk also about the tripod. So what I'm going to do is go and jump ahead here, and we'll hopefully catch up with them here in just a quick minute when they're able to reconnect. So what I have in front of me, my part of this is the cast iron. That's my fun thing to do around the campfire, is using the cast iron. So we have a couple of different things we're going to be making today. If you have the ingredients and want to cook along with us. A couple different cast iron pieces in front of me. This one right here is what a lot of people call a bean pot. It has the rounded top, and it also on the bottom, there is no legs on this one. We're going to use this one for the soup if you have a pan like this one. If you are going to do both dishes with us, you can, if you have two different pans, this is the one I would use for the soup. If you have one they're like this is what I'm going to use to make the cake here in a second. The reason I'm going to use this one to make the cake is this is a Dutch oven, but if you look, it's designed a little bit differently. This one has the legs on it. Some people will call these spiders because of that. It also has the lip right here. So I'm going to hang that one over the fire using my tripod. This one, I'm going to show you how to use charcoal to line it on top and cook whatever's in the Dutch oven. But we're going to start with the soup. So if you have the ingredients, this is a Tuscan bean and sausage soup. You can make as much as you want or as little as you want. I kind of doubled up on the recipe, so you may see me putting a few more things in than what I put on the recipe for you all, because there's a few of us here today working through the bow weekend, and so hopefully I'll have enough to feed everybody. Hopefully it's edible enough for everybody to be able to eat. So a few things here that I did ahead of time, and then mostly just for the sake of time, is one of the things I did was I went on and browned the sausage involved in the recipe. It's not necessary, and honestly, if I was at home doing this, I probably would have thrown it all in there and let it cook. We're limited on time here, and to make sure that it was going to be done before our class was over today, I did go ahead and brown the sausage last night as well as the onions. So I'm going to go and put those in here into this pan. Start with that. I'm also going to be using zucchini. I'm going to dump that in our pot here. Quart here. And this is where it gets to be a little bit of your preference, what your taste is. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic in with ours as well. If you don't like it, recipes are kind of fun because you can always add or delete things you like or don't like. I know a few people emailed me about changing up the ingredients a little bit, and that's perfectly cool. So I may have mentioned 2 cans of beans. This is where I'm adding a little bit more. I've drained these beforehand, so I don't have all that extra liquid in there right now. Dumping it in there. My favorite way to cook around the campfire is find something I can dump it all in one pot and watch it cook. We'll dump all this in here. And we're also using, on the ingredients I sent you, it said a 15 ounce. I went on and used a bigger one again because I'm just making a bigger recipe today. We're going to dump that in there. And if you can see, with all that, fill my pot up here pretty good. Some people, if you don't like the particular kind of seasoning, you can change it up. I'm using an Italian seasoning here in ours. Get my anger issues out, punching that open. The reason we were going to go and put this one on first is because when you are cooking maybe outside around the campfire, you got to think about when things are going to get ready. And so you always want to put the stuff on that's going to take the longest to cook. If I was at home or I wasn't in any rush, didn't have a time limitation like a class time, this is the kind of dish I would put on there and let it cook for 3 or 4 hours. Whenever I'm ready to eat, it would be ready to go. It's not one of those ones you got to babysit too much, as long as your fire is good, not too hot, but it's got a good bed of coals underneath of it. You can just let it sit out there for as long as you want to. I waited on the chicken broth until last because depending on the size of the pot you might be using, you don't want to dump it in there and not have room for your other ingredients. So I'm going to put that one in last just to make sure I have plenty of room in here. And I hope these guys around me are going to be hungry because this is lunch today. That big enough pan, I can add it all. Get all that mixed up together. To me, soups, one-pot meals are the fun one to fix around a campfire. Again, simply because you can put it on there and watch it cook. Get all that mixed in pretty good. Right. So with the tripod, we sent you the directions of being able to make your own. Obviously, the one sitting behind me is one. It was actually made for me, but not out of the sticks and whatever. As you get into this, the tripod will show you how to build in the videos, and hopefully they'll be able to show you here in a few minutes when we get back into our Zoom, is one you can build anywhere. So you don't have to pack it with you. You can just pick up some sticks around you using the Clovis knot and different knots that they showed you. You can put a tripod together that works just like the one I have. Because I like doing this so much, and this is what I do at home quite a bit, luckily I live with a guy who's pretty handy, and he actually built me that tripod. It comes apart, so as you get into this, if it's something you decide you want to do, there are tripods like this. He based this off ones we found for sale. He just wanted made it at home. You can buy these ones if you want something a little bit more permanent than maybe a few sticks in the woods. So we got our soup going, but lunch would not be a good meal without dessert. So we're also going to make a very chocolate kind of cake over here. So with this one, because it does have a lot of like sugar content in it, I'm going to go on and use, most of the time I don't have to use these in my cast iron with good seasoning in it. But with this particular one, because it has a lot of sugar in it, some people will put aluminum foil in there, or they'll buy liners designed for a cast iron. To me, I don't know. It's easy for cleanup, and if I was camping, that might be something I would consider doing because it's a little harder to get to a sink or to wash it out. being that we're here today, it's going to be easy enough for me to clean it out. A lot of times what I do is I'll just use a little bit of cooking spray in it when I'm cooking some of these dishes that may have a little bit more sugar in it, because sometimes those do stick a little bit more. But if that's a problem you have, you can always use those liners too, especially if you're out camping. Okay, what did I do? Oh, there it is. Get myself too spread out over here. So first ingredient in this one is the cherry pie filling, or whatever one you chose. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that, I'm just gonna dump that in, make sure it covers the whole bottom of my Dutch oven. Spread that out a little bit. Again, those meals you can just dump in and watch them cook. Chocolate cake mix, whatever chocolate cake you want to use. I tend to pick out the ones that have more chocolate in it, just because I'm a chocolate freak. I like the chocolate. And what you do now is just spread that on top. In the recipe, it said about a can of a lemon lime drink. That's about a cup and a half. If you're measuring it out of a 2 liter. Put that in there. And when you dump this on, you want to put it on slowly because it will foam up a little bit, and just kind of spread it out over all of it.
Hey, Nancy, Alice wants to know, could you use lemon lime seltzer water instead?
Don't know why you can't. Yeah. I mean, I haven't used it before. I don't know exactly how that would turn out, but any kind of lemon lime, what you're doing is just adding the moisture to that cake batter for it to cook. So easy enough. We just dumped everything in there. Now, this Dutch oven's a little bit different. Like I said, what we're doing here is showing you a couple different ways to cook around the campfire. With the soup, we've got that hanging over the fire over here with the tripod. What we're going to do with this one is we're actually going to use charcoal. So a lot of people, and this was a tricky one. So the way you want to think about cooking with charcoal, a lot of people use these Dutch ovens and do that kind of thing, is that each charcoal brick is about 10 to 15 degrees. So that's how I keep it in my head. So that way, if you have a recipe and it, for example, it says cook it at 350. Well, if each one's worth 10, you know, to add about 35. So the way we do this, though, is that when you cook like that, what you put on top, especially when you're baking, if you're roasting or cooking a little differently, you spread the briquettes a little differently. But with baking, which we're doing today, we're going to put about twice as many on top here as we do on the bottom. There's some really cool charts. If you Google it, look on Pinterest, all those fun places we always like to look for good recipes. There's some pretty good charts out there. It kind of gives you some ideas if you're trying to figure out how many should I use. I just honestly try to watch it. You know, when I know I'm baking, I'm going to put about, I don't know, 12, 15 on top, put about, 6, 7, 8 on the bottom, and then kind of watch and see how I think it's heating. But that's when we're baking, you do want to put about twice as many on top as you do on the bottom. So we're going to get this over here next to the fire. It looks like some of my bricks are ready. Fire right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to also use our fire pit here just to make sure our fire stays in the where we want it.
I got it. I got it.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Over that.
Yep, you're good, Nancy.
I didn't know if Carol and we're back yet.
I think so. Brigida, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We're working on getting the other one back up and running.
Awesome. Do you want me to? I see another phone. Is this going to be the main phone that you're all recording on?
The one that you're just now letting in, yes.
Okay. Okay, so I think if we unmute that one and I mute the one that we're currently talking on, then you should be able to.
That's the plan.
Awesome.
I promise I did practice all this last night.
All right, well, I think you should be good to go now.
Okay, so we're good. Where should I stand?
All right, ladies, what I did was I went on and put the soup and the cake. Mentioned a little bit about the tripod, but if you all want to show them a little bit more about how to build their own if they don't have one like we have here today.
Yeah, I'll have some maneuverability here
Okay.
to. All right, are we ready for us?
Yes.
Okay.
Did forget.
She muted this one, but I think. Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Nancy?
Yes, you are good.
Okay.
All right. My name's Carol, and I'm going to talk about fire safety first. You want to have your fire bucket, water, shovel. You want to make your fire ring. Make sure you clear it of debris so that if a coal should jump out, it's not going to catch the leaves on fire or your other debris. Rake out the leaves, extra wood. Circle it with rocks if you can. Make sure your hair's tied back. If you're with a group of youth, make sure that you tell them no running around the fire. There's only one person designated who can add things to the fire. That way you don't have everybody poking the fire, playing with it, adding all sorts of sticks, leaves, and debris. If they're cooking with sticks in their youth, we really encourage them to kneel down on one knee so that they have stability and they're not going to fall towards the fire. Make sure that they know not to swing those pie makers or roasting sticks around. They might hit somebody with them, especially when they're hot and have a flaming marshmallow. And never leave your fire unattended. So we have 3 types of wood that we use. You have your tinder. We've got our little pile here. And again, if you're working with youth, good thing for them, activity, send them out to the woods, have them gather the variety sizes, and then place them in piles according to the sizes. So your tinder would be small twigs, dry leaves, grass, needles if you need it. Your leaves are going to smoke an awful lot. Rule of thumb for me is I do my pinky finger or smaller for my tinder. And then we have our kindling, which is roughly your thumb size. And then we have our fuel, which is your larger pieces of wood. We're going to use all of those to demonstrate various types of fires. And then extinguishing your fire at the end. If you're going to use it again, you're going to want to sprinkle water. Take your rake or your shovel, move it around, and then sprinkle it with some more water. Move it around with your shovel or rake or a large log. And then hold your hand over it to check for warm spots. And if you can still feel warm spots, you need to continue to sprinkle. Now, if you're not using it the next day, you can go ahead and dump the whole bucket of water on it if you're in a hurry. Word of caution, you don't want to transport your wood more than 50 miles from the original source because of transporting insects into an area where they may not originally be. So fires, you need three things. You need oxygen, heat, and fuel. Our fuel is our wood. Our heat is going to be the way that you start your fire, and there's a variety of ways to do that. And of course, your oxygen in the air, but sometimes it needs a little help. You either need to blow on your fire, or you can take a plate and fan it, or anything else that you can get it fanned with. So several types of fire. Okay, I lost one of my papers. So one fire you can build is a teepee type. And you would get your sticks. Might have to jam them into the wood or into the ground. And you're going to lean them against each other. And then you're going to take your kindling here. And kind of make another teepee underneath it. Got a variety of fire starters here. Easiest one is a batch of lint from your dryer and some wax paper. You put your lint inside, and you can put a birthday candle in there to help it burn a little bit longer. And then just twist it up like a Hershey's Kiss. And you're going to stick it in there amongst your kindling there. Another fire starter. This is wax and sawdust with a little candle or candle wick in there. And this is like a white souffle cup. You can also make fire starters with cardboard egg cartons, and you would fill it with sawdust or
Dryer lint.
dryer lint or rolled up cardboard, and then you pour some wax in it. And then when you need it, you just break off one of the little cups and you would put it in there. You can also use commercially available fire starters. So various ways you can start your fire. If you want to get fancy, you can start with steel wool and a 9-volt battery. You would rub the wool against the terminals and it will spark. There's commercially available flint and steel that you can use. Some of them have magnesium, and you would shave it into your fire. You've got your matches, and depending on where you're doing your fire, you may want to have waterproof matches. And you can waterproof your own by dipping them into wax. You've got your butane lighters. And those are some of the more common ways. Okay, another type of fire that you can build. So fires have a lot of different reasons why you might build them. If you wanted a roaring bonfire, you would want a log cabin. So you're going to take your larger wood and you're going to crisscross them. And you're going to continue until you have the size of bonfire that you want. And then as you get closer to the top, you can go with some of these smaller wood. Again, you're going to build your small A-frame inside. and put your fire starter in there. And then continue to crisscross until you have the height that you desire. So that would be a log cabin. It burns a lot. It burns a lot of wood, gives you a hot fire, and it lasts for a long time.
Do we have any questions on the fire building?
I have a couple others too. So the one that I used today to start the fire was an A-frame. So basically you're going to make an A and have a larger piece of wood as the crossbar of your A. You're going to again build your initial teepee inside with your fire starter. So what the A does is it allows for some oxygen to get underneath this log here. And then you're going to take some more of your wood, your tinder and kindling here, and lay it along the top. And then you'll light your fire starter. And then as you get your fire started, and once the flame's going, then you can add some more of your fuel. Those are the basic kinds. You can find a lot of other different kinds out there on the web if you're searching. Any questions?
I don't see anything popping up in the chat.
Okay.
I'm not getting any cues from Nancy's end.
All
Any
right.
questions? All right. So we'll switch back to the tripod and do a demonstration there. I know we gave it to you as an assignment, but if you didn't get a chance to get to it or maybe need an up-close hands-on demonstration, we'll run through that. You come, huh? All right. All right, ooh, we do have a question. What is your favorite type of wood to use for a long burning fire?
I have never thought about that. I use whatever wood I can get a hold of. I imagine oak would probably, if you had your choice of wood, I imagine oak would be a pretty long burning fire because it's a pretty hard wood. Your pines are softer. Sassafras would smell pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty.
If it is extra dry that's been sitting there a very long time, it will burn quickly versus something that is not quite as dry. All right, we're gonna switch cameramen on this end, camera women.
Okay. I was gonna add another. Once you're running out.
I currently live in an apartment, so I do not have trees around where I can just go and find nice logs, you know, sturdy sticks to be able. So I hit the local hardware store for some dowel rods. Selected me 3 dowel rods. I'm going to start off with a clove hitch. And when I teach a clove hitch, we have 2 parts of our rope. We have the standing end, which is the end that does nothing, and then we have the working end. That's the end that I'm going to be utilizing. So I'm going to leave my long chunk out here. I'm going to take my working end. I'm going to wrap it around my dowel rod and I'm going to make an X. When I bring it back around, I'm going to be tucking my working end underneath the cross of that X. And then I'm going to pull it tight. By the way, if you happen to like hammocks, this is also a fabulous hitch to use for hanging your hammock. You can see it kind of makes an H when I pull the edges to each other, an H or an I, depending on which side you're looking at it. So I'm going to slide that down a little ways, and now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to be weaving this back and forth around my logs. Some people refer to it as a figure 8. And after I do one of these, oops, I missed a spot. Forgot to go under a spot. I like to tighten mine up after I've done each one to make sure I've got it good and tight. Then I'm going to wrap it again. Over and under, slide it down, pull it tight. At least one more time. I like to get 3, maybe 4 of my weavings in here. My tail got in the way. I'm now going to do what's called frapping. Now I'm wrapping my poles. And what this does is it tightens that weaving. Keeps it from slipping with each other and just generally makes it tighter. Once I've got 3 or 4 wraps there, I'm going to go to the next section and I'm going to frap there as well. So I'm wrapping around my weavings. It's getting a little snug, so I know I've done a good job of getting it wrapped around there. Okay, well, once I've got that, I'm going to finish off again with my clothes hitch. So I'm wrapping around my last pole, wrap it around once, wrap it around my X. The end is going to tuck it, that tail is going to tuck underneath that X. And then I'm going to pull it tight right into that clove hitch. A hitch is something that is intended to be sturdy, but it can be easily undone at a later date, whereas a knot is intended to be more permanent. So just a little bit of knot and lashing type terminology. When I pull this back, I angle so that my 2 outsides crisscross with each other, and my middle pole goes in between the 2 of them. Now, for hanging your bean pot, Nancy, I think, had a fancy hook on hers. This one, you can take a bit of your twine or string. I've tied a knot here on the end just to make a loop. I can do a lark's head. So I make an opening here, and I pull my other loop up and through. And I can hang my bean pot right there. If I need to shorten it up, I can just take and wrap a loop or 2 around one of the poles right here and shorten it up if I need to. If you happen to have a metal hanger, you can do a similar sort of thing with it. They can bend the hook around. You've got a good wrap around the handle of your bean pot. Stretch it out here, and then you can hang right there. And again, if you need to shorten your bean pot suspension, you can tighten up your hanger. Any questions about the tripod? I'm going to move my bean pot and tripod over.
Yeah, I don't see any questions right now about the tripod.
After I pour this in, can you run and get me a third of a cup of water?
Okay, nice.
All right, so next up,
Did you call that a clove hitch?
yes, a
Okay.
clove, C-L-O-V-E, just like the spice. All right, so I do love myself some brownies. So we're gonna make some brownies and we're gonna make it in a reflector oven. So we had to make your oven ahead of time. That way that part would be ready because it takes a little while. I'm gonna mix up my brownies here. My brownie mix calls for some oil. I'm putting my oil in first. And I'm mixing mine actually right in my brownie pan. Saves me a little bit later. Give me a little extra oil to spread around at the bottom of my pan. If you have cooking spray, you certainly can do that. My brownie mix calls for 2 eggs. And sometimes you get a piece of shell in. And in this case, a piece of elusive shell. Almost got it. This is probably why I teach my kids that they should crack their eggs in a separate dish. But, oh my goodness. All right, gotcha. We'll try this again, see if I have better luck. All right, there we go, much better luck.
Low battery. Low battery.
Yeah, I think we lost you all on screen for a second. Let's see if it pops back up.
It's the pink one.
Yeah, we're low battery again. Okay, are we back up? There we go, sorry.
Mine calls for some water. So while I'm mixing, I have my reflector oven sitting here in front of me. And I had shared that there's different ways you can use your ovens. To my right, I have my reflector oven. Over here, I have my box oven. Our reflector oven I have to the side. And the grate that I have to use for it actually is a little bit big for the box. So I can just leave that sticking out if I want. I could take my loaf pan, stick that inside, and I'll be able to close it up later if I wanted. If you are outside and it is a bright and sunny day, you can actually utilize your reflector oven without utilizing any coals. Our day is not so bright and sunny here right now. It's supposed to get up to a high of 80 today, but it certainly is not quite there yet. So today we're going to be helping our reflector oven along with some coals. As soon as I get this mixed up, we're going to stick this in our reflector. We can let that cook. I also had you get ingredients so that you could make pizzas. One of my kids' favorite would be their pizzas. And it's the same type of concept here. I would put this in my reflector. If it were a bright and sunny day, I could adjust my top up at an angle to be able to catch more of the sunshine. So I can put a rock underneath, adjust as needed. In this case, don't really have any sunshine, so we're going to have to be utilizing coals on that. So I'll get the coals in just a moment for the pizzas. For those of you who are making right along with us, I have some pizza crust here. Scissors. The reason I have my grate is because I can make my pizzas directly on my grate. Stick that in to be able to do that. Sauce. My sauce around. And you can do this.
Oh, sorry. You need to mute. Sorry, trying to get it back up.
You can do this with Alfredo
Okay, thank
or
you.
garlic sauce or whatever kind you like here. Put some toppings on it. I wasn't going too fancy. I brought some pepperonis. I have some spinach and of course my cheese. Yeah, we were family camping one year and we like to do creative cooking. We camp in tents, but we do camp in the electric campground because of my husband's CPAP. Everybody sleeps better and everybody enjoys the weekend much better. So here we are. Now we did some box oven cooking, some reflector cooking, and made some other creative things. And one evening, a gentleman who was living in one of the campers nearby came over and was asking questions. What on earth have you been making over here? We see you getting out these boxes and all these other things. And so, yeah, we shared with him our box oven and our reflector oven and all of those things. And he'd never seen quite such things. And we were very grateful the next evening to have had our box oven, which we just tucked under the picnic table, because the next evening it was a torrential downpour. So we utilized the campground fire grate, little grill. We had our coals going and we had aluminum foil over the top of it to keep it dry. Got out our box ovens, happened to be pizzas that night. Got out our box ovens. Once the coals were hot, brought them inside of our little shelter where we had our oven set up, and we had dinner that night despite the torrential downpours outside. All right. So momentarily, we're going to pretend that our brownies are baked. Turn around, put these back in, put these in our oven.
Turn the oven towards me.
And did I mention how portable our box ovens are and our reflector ovens? They can go anywhere. So we would have our coals in up underneath here and be letting our pizzas cook.
They might be ready. Well, the bottom ones might be ready.
Next.
Okay. I tried signing in online, but I got too, even though I was muted, I got too much
interference. All right. Any questions on the reflector oven?
Sure. We'll see if some roll in, but I don't think right now we have any questions about the reflector oven.
Are there some of the folks who are cooking along with us? Is that a, can you raise your hand sort of thing?
Nancy's definitely got her hands up.
I suspect Nancy has both hands in the air.
All right. If you want to use my phone.
All right. We're going to be switching phones, just so you know.
It looks like Alice has her reflector oven.
See that? Oh, lovely.
Wow.
Yay. Fantastic, Alice. Thank you. Appreciate the share.
All right, we're switching over to another phone here.
Does Tabitha have hers going? I see a Campfire back there in her background.
Oh, yep, I see the tripod. Awesome.
Okay, we switched up to another phone that has more battery and not tethered. So we're going to back up here and talk about how to get your charcoal started. What's handy is a chimney. I have one over there that's rather cumbersome to transport. This one here, collapses and fits nicely into my Dutch oven carry bag. And then it merely opens with a grate. You're going to take your newspaper underneath the grate here. And put it on top of the grate. And then you will take your matches or lighter and light your newspaper. It should take about 15 to 20 minutes for your charcoal to get ready. And we have some nice glowing coals in the large one over here. The other, if you don't have a nice charcoal chimney, you want to pack your charcoal close together. And you can tuck a little newspaper under there and then again light that. We're trying to eliminate some of the echo here. So we're moving on to the hobo dinner. One of the things I read about it was named hobo dinner because back in the Depression area, hobos were riding the trains and transients, and they would put together whatever they happened to have. So hence hobo dinner. You can use whatever you want. A common one would be a hamburger patty with vegetables. If I do that, I quite often put a sliced onion on the bottom so that my burger doesn't burn. You can use canned vegetables. If you're worried about your potatoes cooking or your other hard vegetables being done by the time you want to eat. I'm a little tired of hamburgers and veggies, so I thought I would make this one with sausage. So if you choose, you can spray your foil. And then I have my sausage here. Now this recipe is a little bit more complicated than most hobo dinners because it says to put it all together in a bowl or a baggie. You're going to pour your oil over it and then your seasonings. So we're just going to lop them on top. So I've got my carrots cut into coins. And I have my potatoes. You want to make sure your potatoes are cut thin if you're using fresh potatoes instead of canned, because they will take longer to cook. Have our onions. Yours. And I have my spices that I put together and mixed.
And I'm just going to sprinkle those over. Have some oil. Gonna drizzle that over. Now, if I had done this in the bowl or the baggie, the oil would coat the vegetables and the sausage a little bit better. And then we have 4 chunks of butter here. I'm just going to spread it out evenly among my foil dinner. I am using heavy duty aluminum foil, and you pretty much only want 1 layer because otherwise it won't cook in the time needed. And I actually have a lot more than that square will accommodate. So we're going to slide my meal onto the other square here. And you're going to want to seal your foil packet. If you're camping with a lot of people, you may want to take a marker to mark your initial on, or you can be creative with your foil and make a critter like a swan. And they cook for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on your ingredients and how, if they're already canned and pre-cooked, all you'll need is enough to get it heated through if you're using a raw hamburger, or if you're using raw potatoes, carrots, they might take a little bit longer. So we'll throw these in the fire. I do have tongs and gloves to remove them with later on. Any questions about?
I can hear them sizzling already.
Any questions about hobo dinner?
Doesn't look like we have any questions about the hobo dinner. But it looks like other people are cooking some good stuff out there.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Just no questions, but we've got a couple comments that other people are cooking some good stuff. I know Carrie said she tried the box oven, but the foil didn't get in there too well. So her muffins, she just put them in the oven. But Tabitha said she's making elk brats on the campfire. She's got a foil pack of potatoes, zucchini, peppers, and biscuits and sausage in the oven. We're on our way.
That all sounds wonderful. Halibut cheek packs. Wow, sounds good. We have some adventurous people here. Here's our beautiful coals in the large chimney. And the other one is, it's gone out because I didn't put enough paper underneath because I was using it as a demonstration. So Brigitte is working on biscuits in a box oven. She is putting charcoal into a muffin tin.
I'm pre-warming my oven. It's nice and warm inside. All right. I have my biscuit mix. sure you can. I opted for easy on some of my mixes and things since I was traveling. Oven had a little steam coming out of there. It's getting warm, which is exactly what we want.
I'm trying to take a picture of my not very portable solar oven. I'm not having much luck. Gets up to 350 degrees. Can you
That's good enough for
hear
bacon.
me or see? Yeah. Put it down inside and close the oven door. Very neat.
I think we can see you now, Wanda.
I'm making what I call lazy bits. Then one biscuit is making individual little bitty ones. I like that whole concept of the monster brownie or the monster cookie, making a big one. And I decided to be a little extra fancy today, and I brought my rosemary along. Biscuit, rosemary, but like a lobster. All right. I'll have my box on.
Brigida, can you all still hear me? I think. Maybe not.
I can hear you. Wanda.
Okay. Let's see if we can get our presenters. Brigida, are you there?
Okay, how's that? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, somehow it had gotten muted. Okay.
So what I have done is, since my coals fill the top of my muffin tin, I took another pan and upended it over the top of my coals just to give a little more air space between the coals down here at the bottom and my baking pan up here at the top. So close up my oven. And we'll come back and check on it in just a short little bit. Next up, I believe, is our cold pan hot dogs, right?
Hang on, Brigida. I think we lost you again. Can you hear me?
Keeps getting muted. All right. Okay, how about now? Can you hear?
Yeah. So which phone is this coming from?
This is coming from Carol.
Carol. Okay. Yep, Carol, I think you are on.
Okay.
All right. So this particular cooking technique comes from my mother. I had never done this before. Several years ago, we were on the annual Labor Day camping trip. My parents joined along with us, and each of us all take turns with being in charge of organizing and cooking a meal. And this is the particular one that she did. So she brought along some terracotta pots. If yours used to hold a plant, please make sure you clean it out first. When you are done cooking with it, you can always turn around and put the plant back in. She took some of the phyllo dough.
Says video is out.
I think it just came back. Is everybody good on the video now? Should be from Carol W. I'll monitor the yeah, I think
Okay,
we're
thank
good
you.
on video on Carol. So you're good.
All right. So I have my sheets of phyllo dough.
Looks like we're in fog. Is that better?
I know we can still see you all. I think the fogginess might be from the low bandwidth, but hopefully we can keep your all's video going. But that's probably why it looks maybe a little foggy. But
Okay. How much closer?
All right, so I'm just simply lining my pot with some of my phyllo dough here. This is going to be your crust. And we'll take a couple of sheets depending on how big of a pot you've actually used. And how much crust do you like to have on your pot? On yours. You want to make sure that you leave some of your dough sticking out because you're going to want to be able to fold over and to create your top. Scooch that one around so it fits a little better. All right. So you look inside my pot, you can see where I've got it. We've got a good layer down at the bottom because there's extra dough that's kind of folded around there. The bottom. Got your layers there. Huh? All right. And then I have some chicken pot pie mix that I'm going to pour in. Once I have that in, I'm going to fold my doughs over the top. And then this goes right over here. A good little spot here. Try to keep it fairly level, but want to get it in a spot where it's going to be good and hot.
Would you flip our foil packets, please?
I sure will.
Okay, we're going to flip the foil packets here so that they cook fairly evenly.
Our swan is now upside down. I also turn mine around. That's because it's spreading out the heat a little bit. All right. Any questions on the terracotta pot pie?
so we have a question. So you don't put a lid on that terracotta pot?
No, if you want to, you could put some foil over the top of it, but you don't have to. The heat will cook up the terracotta much like stoneware cookware made out of the stone, and then cook evenly around your food.
Looks yummy.
My children and my husband helped me out eating Pringles for us. So I have my empty Pringles can. I'm going to be cutting a hole in it. I should say a window, I guess. And this is actually not going to work directly as we're supposed to here because, well, again, as I mentioned, we don't have a whole lot of sunshine today. But we're just still going to make it. We're going to still demonstrate it. The worst case scenario is we might have to put the hot dogs in one of our other ovens. I also couldn't find my shish kebab skewers. So I got a little creative and we're going to be using fondue forks today. And we're just going to skewer a hot dog from either end.
I drank beer, so I would have cans for the oven. Awesome. Love your thinking.
Sacrifices. All right, so I am cutting a window here for my oven. I'll make it a little bit longer because my hot dog is not a short hot dog. I suppose that window would work if it was a little smoky. And you could use a knife for this if you like. I just happen to have the scissors handy, so that's what I'm doing. All right. I need a hole on the end. Because I need to be able to insert my skewer, or in this case, my fondue fork through, because that's going to be on one end. I'm going to need to puncture a hole in the other end. I'm using my scissors because I've misplaced my nail. All right, so I have skewer in through one end. Skewer my hot dog here. Skewer from the other end. Put my lid on. And then I can move my skewers either direction to accommodate length and size that I need. So if this were a bright and sunny day, I could have that sitting there. You can take this part of with the part that you cut off, and you can put some glue on it so that you could put an angler on it if you want. You can also utilize rocks and other things to skewer it if you don't want to have to mess with that. In this case, I'm going to go take this and I'm going to stick it over here in my oven. And we're just going to let it take advantage of the heat.
Take a look at our terracotta pot pie here. It's bubbling nicely. Looking good. I can almost taste that. Okay.
Any questions on the cooking from Northern Indiana so far? Mouths watering, I hope?
No questions.
I think at this point we turn it back to Nancy. That sound right?
Boiled banana boats looks like it's next. So Nancy, back to you.
All right, we'll get her unmuted.
Good to go?
Yep.
All right. We're all about eating sweet stuff around here. This is what it's called, banana boats. So what you would do is take a banana, just slice it down the middle. You don't want it to go all the way through, but what you're going to be able to do is just make it, you want to be able where you can open it up. We're going to use the peel itself kind of as a bowl. Put it up a little bit more in here. And this is where you can get creative. You can put in here whatever you like. What we're going to use today is the little marshmallows, bigger ones. They'll melt a little better, a little faster. And this is going to be another one of those foil meals that we're going to make. We'll put a few marshmallows in here. Again, being the chocoholic that I am, we're going to add a few of these. Might have been even a little bit better if I put those first, but we're going to get them down in there. And again, this is where you can get creative. Some people put Red Hots in here. Some people will put those little Heath pieces, candy bar pieces in there. Whatever you like. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the fire like we did our foil meals over there, our hobo meals. And as it cooks, that banana will cook and caramelize. And with that chocolate and that marshmallow mixed in, these are pretty tasty things. So we're going to get this on the fire. So hopefully we can see it done in just a few minutes. And you can see how it comes apart, and we can just use the peel itself kind of as our bowl for this. Just like the hobo meals, we're just going to wrap it loosely around here. All caught up in there. Easy enough. This is one of those quick desserts. Kids love them because it's something they can put together. And again, sometimes when we do this like this and with the s'mores, we'll like almost set like a buffet out. All different kinds of toppings, chocolates, different things like that to let the kids just be creative or let family members be creative with putting it together. We're going to put this on the fire over here opposite of our hobo meals, our hobo breakfasts. Easy enough stuff to do, quick and easy. All right. So we got any other cooking things we need to talk about? Oh, we got ice cream to go with that banana. Are we there? Gone?
Nope, you're still good, Nancy.
No, it's back to them on the ice cream. Carol's gonna make some ice cream for us.
Okay, Carol, can you hear us?
Not quite. All right. For the sake of time, I know we're kind of pushing on an hour and a half here with you all. Hopefully we'll get them back on here and she can show us how to make that ice cream pretty quick. We did include instructions and stuff on the webpage for our bow class. So hopefully we'll be able to look at that if they don't get back on with us. But we also want to talk about the cast iron a little bit. Some people ask us about what to do with that or what we look for and how we use it. I like my cast iron. I have a lot of pieces. I quit counting around 50 or so. Now, not all of those are pans I use every day by any means, but there are a few that I go to every time I come out around to cook around the campfire. The two that I showed you early on are I guess my two favorites at this point. The one is a good one, again, that has the legs on it. So if you don't have one yet and you're looking at going out and buying one to start maybe cooking around the campfire, that one to me might be a good one to start with because it's pretty versatile. It's got the bail on it, it's got the handle on it, so you can use it like a soup pot, and I've done that before with it. But in this case where I want to cook two different things at the same time, I can use my hook, tripod, and my bean pot to cook the soup. And with those legs on that tripod, or on the Dutch oven, it gives me the other option of being able to cook with the coals. So that would be a good one to start with. If you don't have one and you're looking to get started cooking on the outdoor campfire with the cast iron, that's the one you pick up. The size I have is a number 10. And honestly, for myself, I wouldn't go any smaller. There's usually two of us home these days, and that does cook a pretty good meal for the two of us. But a lot of times, if you want to cook for a bigger group, you're going to want maybe a little bit bigger than that. So that would be the smallest I would go, is that number 10. A lot of people ask me before on cast iron, what do I buy? It's really going to get down to your preference. There's a lot of companies now that make cast iron. One is if you pick them up and hold them. One of the things I think that gets people from wanting to use cast iron is it can be heavy. But if you pick up and hold different ones, you'll find that some of them weigh more than others. And so you definitely want to pick it up and hold on to it and make sure it's one you're going to feel comfortable using. Because I hear a lot of people go, I quit using it because it's too heavy. Pick it up, hold it, and see if it actually feels good to you as far as weight-wise. The other thing I like to look for is if it has a smooth finish on the bottom of it. And to give you an example, one of the pans I have sitting out here, these older pans, you can see it's got that really smooth bottom. Now, if you compare that to some of the newer pans, it'll look really rough and bumpy there. The mass-produced pans sometimes do have a rougher finish to it, where these older pans usually have the smoother finish to it. So that's another reason I like these older pans is if you can get a hold of them in antique stores or auctions or yard sales, they're kind of fun to mess with, to clean them up and use them. And I think they're a little bit better only because I prefer the older stuff, but two, because a lot of times they're lighter weight, the older ones are, because they were hand cast and not mass produced like some of the new stuff out there. And with being handmade, a lot of times it's got a smoother finish on it. Now, as far as caring for the different cast iron, there's a lot of right answers. I think there's a lot of people out there that use their cast iron and take care of it in different ways. So I can just tell you what works for me. I restore a lot of cast iron, and what I do is I use, honestly, just straight Crisco. Some people will swear by
Hey, Nancy, if you can
some
hear us.
people will say
Nancy,
flaxseed.
we're getting some low bandwidth messages. Hang on, I think we lost you. So maybe,
Yes,
okay, can you hear me?
it's still good for the moment.
Our screen just came back. Well, we kind of missed the end of your cast iron
Okay.
skillet.
So we can just jump from camera to camera. So with the cast iron, did it show them the skillet, or is that what part where it cut out at?
When you were talking about you refinishing them.
Okay, so a lot of times what I do when I refinish them, I just use Crisco. It works for me. You want to use an oil to season with that has a pretty high heat tolerance. Something like olive oil just won't work very well. A lot of times it can't hold the heat well enough, because that's what you want to do with the cast iron is you want to get something on it that's going to stick to it. And you just can't get the pan hot enough for something like olive oil to stick to. So what I do when I'm like hard seasoning my pans for the first time, and now when I say that, I have completely stripped down everything that was on that pan is down to the bare iron. I'm using Crisco, and and again, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I use what they call a 200, 300, 400 method, where I'll put in the pan in the oven at 200 for about 15-20 minutes. And the reason you do that, and sometimes you don't have to do it as long, is you want to make sure the pan is completely dried out. So if you've been cleaning on it, scrubbing on it, you just want to make sure it's completely dry before we try to seal it. And once I've done that for a few minutes, I'll pull it out and I'll put a light layer of the Crisco on it. And I say light because if you have it caked up on there, I don't know if you've seen pans that have like different spotches on them and wondering what caused that. That's where the oil that they were using was puddled up when they were seasoning the pan. So just a real light layer, and I flip my pans upside down. So that way, if there's any extra inside of it, it's going to drip out. A lot of times I'll put a cookie sheet or something underneath of it to catch any of that just in case. And I'm going to leave that again another 15-20 minutes. Then I'm going to that's when I've turned the oven up to 300. I'm going to pull it back out. I'm going to wipe it down again to make sure, again, there's no puddling on there at all. And I'm going to pop it back in the oven, and now I'm hitting it up to 400. And that's getting to what they call the smoke point for that oil. Some people go a little hotter. I just keep it at 400. You're going to know that it's working because there's a smell in the house, so you could smell it. A lot of times I try to do that in the mornings when it's cool enough I can pop a window open. And I leave that in there for about an hour, hour and a half. And that puts a hard seasoning on your pan. And I'll do that when I'm redoing pans for somebody. I'll do that 3 times to get a pretty good seasoning on it before they start using it. Then when I'm done with those pans, like today when we're done, we'll wipe them out. Once you get the seasoning stuff on it, a lot of times all you got to do is use water, hot water. If you've got something stuck to it, that does happen sometimes, no matter what, especially these cobblers and stuff with the sugar in there. Just take a rubber spatula flipper thing and use the edge of it. And a lot of times that'll peel it right off for you. If it needs to soak a little bit, a little warm water, some people will go back in and put some water in there and set it back on the stove and bring it to a boil. That warm water sometimes will loosen it up. And a lot of times once you've got it out, all you gotta do is wipe it dry. Now, if I'm still working on that pan, I'm still building up the seasoning, you know, that nice crust that's on grandma's pans, I'll set it on the oven. Again, bring the heat up a little bit, wipe it down with that Crisco, let it stay hot for a little bit till I can smell it, and I'll wipe it clean again to make sure there's no pulling in there. So when we're taking care of that cast iron, the big thing is keeping it dry, and then every now and then putting that oil on it. So I'm doing a lot of talking, guys. Is there questions? Can you read those, Kaylin, up there about how to take care of your cast iron or what to do with it?
I don't think I see any questions about cast iron yet. We definitely have fans of the banana boat, some people who wants to try them. We got one from Amber. What do you use to strip down your cast iron?
So, okay, I do this a lot. So there's some different ways to do that. I actually use what's called an electrolysis tank, where I'm actually using electricity and It pulls the rust off of it. Some people will, and if you Google that, there's a ton of videos out there how to do that, YouTube. Some people use what's called a lye bath, or they're using actually lye and creating a bath with it. And again, YouTube, there's all kinds of stuff on there. And then some people, you're going to see, if you look up cleaning cast iron, some people will use like the Easy Off oven cleaner. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. It's a lot of chemicals. The electrolysis tank doesn't really use a whole lot of stuff, so it pulls it off nice and clean. The lye bath, if you go that route, it will pull that gunk off of it, you know, that hard black seasoning that might be on that pan, it's just too much on it. It will pull the gunk off of it, but it will not clean the rust off of it. The electrolysis tank will clean both. So I debated whether or not to use a lye bath, pull the gunk off instead of getting all that stuff in my e-tank, my electrolysis tank, but it does both, and I just end up changing out my water every now and then to keep it clean. So when you Google, that's the 3 ways most people will talk about cleaning their cast iron. Now, if you talk to grandma, grandpa, those kind of people, they're going to say, just throw it in fire. And they've gotten away with it, they've done it, and it may work. Most of the time, though, if you are trying to redo them, the fire method might not be the preferred way, because sometimes if that fire is really hot like that, just throwing it in there like that, it can actually cause fire damage to a pan. And sometimes you pick up an older pan and it's a red to it and it's not rust, it didn't wipe off, that's fire damage, where that pan's gotten so hot it's actually changed the composition of the pan. And what could happen at that point, it might be completely usable for a long time, but what can happen with it sometimes is once it has fire damage to it, it causes it to be brittle. Or more brittle. So those pans sometimes can crack. It can cause them to warp. So that's the reason Grandma and Grandpa got away with it, and they did it, and it worked fine, I guess. And it could work fine for somebody else. I just don't do that with my pans because it can cause them to crack or break, and it can cause them to warp. If you are out shopping for a pan and you are going to buy used, that is one thing I forgot to mention you might want to look for, is set it down on a flat surface. If it doesn't have the legs and stuff on it, set it down on a flat surface and make sure that it's sitting flat. If it's warped, it'll spin. That's what the collectors will call spinners. And that's probably not a pan you're going to prefer, because that pan is going to sit up off your burner on your stove. It's not going to sit flat on your grill, and so then your food's not going to stay where you want it necessarily. So that may be something you want to check. The other thing I will check when I'm redoing pans is once I pull them out of the e-tank, because I am buying older pans, I will also do a lead test on them. There are little kits you can buy at pretty much any home supply store kind of thing. And it's just like a little tube, you break it and you rub it across the pan. And the reason I want to do a lead test on these pans is because back in the day, and even today, a lot of times people would use those cast iron pans to melt lead with, to make sinkers for fishing. And you'd be surprised. I have found a lot of people think, oh, it's just the corncob pans and those kind of pans that would have it, and sometimes, and they do sometimes. But I've even found some of my bigger flat pans. I broke my heart one time. I had a nice 10-inch pan and ran that stick across it, and it was lead positive. And at that point, it's useless because you can't get that out of it. And I think I gave that to somebody, and they're going to paint a picture on the back of it at that point, because you don't want to cook with that particular pan. So if you are going to restore or redo, look for pans that sit flat, so you don't have those spinners on them. And as you're redoing them, you probably want to consider doing that lead test on it just to make sure. Most of my pans, never a problem. I mean, I've done, I don't know how many pans now, but every now and then one will pop up, and it's not worth taking the chance for me that I miss one. So I lead test every single one of my pans like that I redo.
And the second part to her question, when you say you do that procedure 3 times, are you doing the 400 part of the procedure 3 times?
Yeah, the whole cycle, the 200, 300, 400 cycle the whole time. Yeah.
And then one more about, so she's been told to use salt scrub to clean her pots, but it doesn't seem to work real well on the stubborn spots. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's where I don't use it either. What works is taking just the rubber end of those spatulas or those pan scrapers. I don't know if you all seen those. I had a couple back up front, but our one camera, gosh, we're having so much technology problems today, guys. Sorry about that. Just the rubber end of your spatula. A lot of times you put a little warm water in there. You also probably, what will help is clean the pan when it's still warm. Not hot, because that could cause, just like glass, whatever, it causes it to warp or break. But when it's still warm, before it actually has the chance to really dry and cake on there, that helps me too. So sometimes when I do scrambled eggs, and I will do scrambled eggs in my cast iron, if I leave it sitting on the stove and don't clean it, what does get up around the edges of it, the bottom's fine, but sometimes the edges, that little light coat of eggs will stick on there. But a lot of times it's just take that scraper on there, and if you can get it before it gets completely cold or cool, it does sometimes comes off easier. And hopefully that help you get it clean too, because a lot of people do swear by the salt, and that's what they'll do. I just use the rubber end of that spatula most of the time in warm water. I don't use soap. Some people, again, may tell you, I've worked really hard to get that seasoning coat on there. I sure don't want soap pulling it off of it, and I think that's could be a possibility with some of the different soaps and stuff. And a lot of times if you get that seasoning on there really good, all it takes is just a little warm water, maybe that scraper every now and then, and you're good to go. Other cool questions? Can y'all tell I like my cast iron? Got it back.
Love my cast iron.
Yes.
Yep, I think that was
I've
all.
lost track of pieces. I've lost track of how many pieces I have now, but crazy. The bean pot I'm using actually is one I just finished restoring last week. Because I wanted a different one, a new one. The brands, if you're looking for a particular brand, don't worry about the brands. Almost all the ones I use are what they call it unmarked. They don't have the brand names Lodge, Wagner, any of that kind of stuff on the back of it. They were back when they were making those older pans, the foundries and stuff, a lot of them, there wasn't a name to them, or they didn't worry about putting a name to them. Now the collectors, a lot of times, if you get serious about it, you can sometimes just by the handle, the shape of the handle of it, tell what kind of pan it is, or certain markings on the back of it. Sometimes I can flip it and go, oh, that's an unmarked Wagner. Those name brand companies made other pans, but they sometimes made an economy version, and they didn't always put the names on the back of it. Putting the name on the back of it made it worth more money, same pan, but so don't worry about shopping for the name. Worry about just picking it up and holding it, make sure it feels good to you, and then you know, looking for that finish on it, looking for that finish to make sure that it's going to be a pan you're going to enjoy using it and doesn't stick too much for you. How we doing? I see some cooking going on. That's cool.
Are we back for ice cream?
Sorry?
Are we back for the ice cream?
Yes.
All right, so I know we're a little out of time here, so we'll be quick. There's a couple methods you can use to make your homemade ice cream. There's one where you use 2 sizes of coffee cans, and you can call it kick the can, and you can have everyone kick it around in the yard. This one you can make into a ball and throw back and forth, or kick it back and forth, or you can just shake it. So we've got our half and half. I'm making 2 servings, so I have a cup in there. I have my sugar, and I have my vanilla. So I'm going to put that all in there, mix it up. Now I've had a lot of these, my campers have gotten a little vigorous. Oh, and I use freezer bags. So my campers have gotten a little vigorous, so I do like to seal them with duct tape for a little added security. And I put ice and I put salt. I could not find any ice cream salt late last night. So I have ice and regular table salt. The salt helps to cool down the ice. And I'm gonna put some more salt in there. A little more ice. Seal it well. And I'm gonna put my duct tape on there. And then depending on if you have gloves or not, you can put it into a brown paper bag. You can wrap it in newspaper and then get your winter gloves out. And you're just going to shake, 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 about 10 minutes.
You can also toss it between, if you have a larger group, toss it back and forth between group members.
So it's a fun group activity, tossing it back and forth, kicking it back and forth, depending on how well you secured everything or the can. When you're done, you'll want to take the inner bag out
You may want to rinse it off with some fresh water so you don't get the salt from the bag transferring onto your ice cream. And then you can add your ice cream toppings right in the bag. If you have your own individualized bag, you can add your toppings right in the bag and eat it right out of the bag. Any questions?
I don't see anything popping
Okay.
up.
Well, thank you for sharing your morning with us. This has been fun. Nancy, back to you.
Hang on, Nancy, let's get unmuted real quick. All right, I think you are good to go.
All right. So hopefully you all gonna be able to enjoy some tasty things today. I know we're starting to pull things off. Got breakfast going. We got lunch cooking out here today for us. If you're gonna be back with us today, we are doing bow fishing from here, so you get to maybe put up with us twice today. If you're doing that workshop or that class with us later today, Courtney's gonna be doing that. We also be back tomorrow here with another outdoor cooking, bow fishing, and fly fishing. So hopefully we'll get to see you all again soon. Don't forget about our virtual campfire tonight. I believe that's 7 o'clock Central Time, our time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you haven't, the invite was in an email that Olivia sent you. I'm gonna back up here and get smoked out. So don't forget about doing that tonight with us. Hopefully we'll get to see a lot of you all there today. You have our emails, so as maybe you get a chance to kind of sit down and think about what we talked about today, don't hesitate to call or email us, call us, and we'd be glad to talk about outdoor cooking with you guys. Thank you all much for hanging out with us today, and hopefully we'll see you all this evening.
Great job.
Thank you, everyone.
That was wonderful.
Let's see. Bring the other thing up. Yeah, I do.
Dylan, you might, Amber, do you have a quick question? Right before we ended, she said, do you have time for one more cast iron question?
Sorry.
What is the best way to restore cast iron after it, or what is the best way to store it after it has already been restored?
Making sure you got your seasoning down on it. And then I've got so many cast iron, I got them stacked up in the cabinet to the point that we had to reinforce our cabinets. But what I'll do a lot of times is I'll put like a paper towel or something in between them and I'll stack them. But I just put that paper towel in between them, or, you know, an extra dish towel or something, just to keep them from rubbing against each other, is how I end up storing them. As long as they got the seasoning, your seasoning's good on it, and the pan's dried out, make sure the pan is dry before you put it away. If it's got any wet spots on it at all, it'll rust on you. But once you got it dried off, you got good seasoning on it, just stack them in your cabinet, and hopefully you don't break your cabinets like I have. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Very awesome. We'll stay with you as long as you all have questions. I thought we were
right at the end when I saw it, and I was like, oh no.
Sorry, we didn't mean to cut anybody off. I can't read. Can you read the screen? It's too light for me to see it.
Nope, just Amber saying thank you.
Awesome.
Looks like we don't have any more rolling in.
All right.
Great job. Great.
Thank you, Wanda. Thanks, everybody. Hope to
Yes.
see you all later.
Yep. See y'all tonight, hopefully at the virtual fire. We'll be back at our campfire tonight.
We got to try this.
And me. Yep.